blessing. Thank you so much, Eva.
Thank you.
I'm just going to go off my own script today, but just to comment on this, what I love about today's daily word is that there's a section in here, and I know we don't have it all printed up here, but I'm going to read it again for you. It says, "Today I bring the love and peace of God to all my encounters by being thoughtful. More than politeness and deeper than kindness." Right there, that is so huge to me, that thoughtfulness is more than politeness, because we all know how to be polite. Really awful people still know how to be polite, right? We've all worked with people or seen people that they know how to be polite, but this is different, right? And deeper than kindness, right? This is thoughtfulness. And it goes on to say, it means that thoughtfulness means I consider the comfort and happiness of others equal to my own. Equal to my own comfort and happiness. Not someone, we don't want to think that we need to consider other people's feelings higher than ours and not respect our own boundaries, right? But also that it's equal. So I just love today's daily word. So thank you for sharing that with us. And so there we go. I'm going to go back on to what I had planned for today. So this is a song I wrote a while ago. This song is called Here and Now. And the words to it, although it's a little catchy tune, you might find yourself bebopping, but I encourage you to really take a listen to the lyrics of this song, because that's the most important part of the message, and it will, I will reflect it in the talk here, right? So, do 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 do. In my teenage years, life was not so easy. Spent many days in tears. I just couldn't face the teasing. I dreaded every day of school. That's truth. The kids could be so very cruel. Now I could spend all day listing each infraction, but it would not pay an ounce of satisfaction. 'Cause when I let go of the past, I know my suffering won't last. 'Cause here and now, not there and then, all I need to remember when I want to know why or how, just stay focused on the here and now. Do 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 do. Now here I am today, a person who is stronger. The hurt is far away. I don't feel it any longer. And if wounds resurface from the past, I know my suffering won't last. 'Cause here and now, not there and then, all I need to remember when I want to know why or how, just stay focused on the here and now. Do 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 do. I stay focused on the here and now. Do 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 do. And I don't let tomorrow worry me. 'Cause in the present moment, I can see that here and now, not there and then, all I need to remember when I want to know why or how, just stay focused on the here and now, not there and then, all I need to remember when I want to know why or how, just stay focused on the here and now, not there and then, all I need to remember when I want to know why or how, just stay focused on the here. There is nothing but the here. I stay focused on the here and now. Yes, here and now, right? I had no idea when I wrote that song 5 or 6 years ago how much I would still have to sing it to myself. I thought I wrote the song, I learned that lesson, and, done with that. But that's just not the way it works, is it? We are just constantly reminding ourselves, or Spirit is reminding us of the lessons that we have learned or haven't yet, or we've learned but we haven't internalized them yet. So literally in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, I still haven't figured this out, have you? Or figured it out, but I don't put it into practice as much as I'd like to. But that's the way constantly, right? We're all on a journey. In Buddhism, we refer to practicing Buddhism because it's always practicing, right? Because it's like, are you ever really going to get it right? Who knows, right? So today's topic, actually, what's your story? And ironically, I got an email from Unity of Santa Barbara, and they have a guest speaker, guest minister this morning, and their topic is not exactly what's your story, but it's the exact same idea. They're also talking about storytelling, and so am I too loud, or is it too loud? Okay, maybe it's my speaker. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit here. So, you might be at a party, you might be, or a dinner, and, there's introductions passed along. Hi, my name is so-and-so, and how do you know the host or something? And eventually, or what do you do for a living? But sometimes that question comes up of, so what's your story? Did anyone ever ask you that? Like, so what's your story? And then sometimes we're not even asked what our story is, but we decide to vomit it out on someone anyway, right? I've had that happen to me more times than I can tell you. I didn't ask you your story. Why are you telling me? So my question is, what is your, when someone asks you that, or when you're given the opportunity, what is your lead off? What do you start with? Do you start with, I'm a proud parent of 2 kids and 6 grandkids, and I live my life joyfully and it's fulfilling, and I have these friends and wonderful people in my life, and I spread joy wherever I go? Is that your story? Or is your story, well, I was born to a poor family in South Dakota, and my dad left my mom when I was 4, and so life was tough, and that, have you heard those stories? Yeah, and you don't have to admit this right now, but do you tell those stories? And so that would be something that we might want to consider. One of the questions that I think that we can ask ourselves is your story, does it start with I was, or does it start with I am? Wow, right? I was this, or I am this, right? Really important question. I should have saved that to the end of this talk, right? Maybe I'll write a story about, or a song about that next week. But when you start your story, could you consider the fact that I am this? This is who I am. This is what I am today, right there. I mean, I could just end the talk right now. We could be done at 5 till 11 if we want to do that, right? And so that goes back to my song, right? Here and now, not there and then, right? What am I here and now? Who am I right here, right now? If I answer that question right now from you, I can say, I am a very happy, joyful person who is serving in ministry. I had no idea I'd be here, but serving in ministry in a far suburb of Seattle in the Northwest. This is what I'm telling people who are from the East. They don't know where we are, right? But that is my story. That's my here and now. And I have lots of theirs and thens. And I'm 52, and some of you are a little older than that. And I bet you have even more there and thens, right, to tell. But where are you right now, here and now? Unity principle number 3 reminds us, right? It tells us we create our own reality by the activity of our thoughts and our feelings and our beliefs, right? So think about that. If we're creating our own reality by our thoughts, our beliefs, and you're thinking about the past, you're thinking about your story that might have happened 30, 40, 50 years ago, what are you creating? That same event over and over again, right? If you had a painful scenario in your life, and who amongst us has not, if you've had a painful scenario, how long do you want to live in that scenario? Some of them are a lot harder to get out of than others. But the longer we live in that, in the the pain of that and the suffering of that scenario and keep telling it and talking about it, then we're going to keep it alive. When we lose a loved one, we're told, I lost my father 12 years ago and my very close grandmother about 7 years ago. And we're told, you keep this person alive by thinking holding the memories of them alive and holding their spirit alive inside of you. And that is so true for me. Not only do I look like a spitting image of my father, like if he were standing here, you'd be like, which one's which? But I keep his spirit alive by thinking and living in the positive aspects of who he was. And same thing for my grandmother. It's a little easier with her, actually. She was more joy personified than he was, but I choose to live in the joy parts of my memories of my father. The same is true about negative things. We can keep the deceased, the past, alive by holding their energy, but we can also keep negative things alive by holding their energy, right? So again, I go back to, what is the story you are telling? In Buddhism, there's a teaching called the parable of the second arrow. Have you heard of that? The parable of the second arrow. So it basically is a teaching that says, if you are struck by an arrow, and I hope you're not, I hope you're never struck by an arrow, but if you are struck by an arrow, it's going to be painful. You're going to hurt if you're even still alive after that point, okay? But the second arrow, if it strikes that same arrow right in the back of it, and drives it further in, it's even more painful than the first. So the idea is not to be driving second and third and fourth and fifth arrows into that initial pain. Painful things are going to happen to us, right? Has anyone not had a painful experience in their life? Because if you haven't, I'd love to, know more about you. But if you keep replaying that and you keep driving your own second arrow into that, do you see where that parable applies? If we're constantly retelling the story of a painful event, it's the same thing. Yes. Our news stations have become experts at this, right? So I personally I don't watch television. I haven't watched television, 25, 30 years. Probably about 30 years. Occasionally, someone will say, "Oh, here's a series," and now on the internet, I can pull it up and watch 9 episodes in 9 days or 9 hours or something, and I've got some of those things. But watching television is the thing that I just don't do, and it's not because I'm higher or greater than television or that I think it's a bad influence or something like that. It's for me, it's a time suck. It takes away a lot of my time, but the news in particular, I do have an opinion about this. I like to stay up on current events. I'm fascinated right now with the royal family and the funeral that's going on over there and all the rituals and stuff involved in that. However, I get my news by reading it, and I don't get a newspaper, they don't really hardly even make them anymore, but I read through my apps. Here's the thing though, I'm able to control how many times I read that story. Right? If I watch the news, if I'm at someone's house and the news is on, and I have friends and family who the television is on 24 hours a day, literally 24 hours a day, and the news plays over and over again, how many times do the news stations tell you the same story in 1 hour? And then they spin it, and then they've got this commentator and that commentator. And if the story isn't good, and honestly, on the news, usually the stories aren't good, right? And the good ones, they don't do that. They don't tell you this, oh, wow, this person, grew this flower garden, and they don't tell you that 6 times in 1 hour. But they're happy to tell you about the fire that burned down this or that over and over again. So for me, I'm able to control that input, that negative energy that comes into me by reading it. And then when I see the headline again, I don't have to click on it. So that's my little tip. That's free for you. You can have it. All right. Turn off the news. Read it. But the reason I say that, though, is because, again, if we are constantly fed that negative thing, it will impact us, right? I said that already. Got out of my order here. So what stories, and again, you don't have to answer this out loud if you want to, sure. But what stories do you tend to repeat? What stories do you tend to repeat, and why? And why do you repeat these? Now, what, your childhood? Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We were so poor growing up, but we didn't care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
happy family, very happy
Mm,
mother and father, and we didn't have anything.
mm-hmm.
We didn't have no Christmases or anything for
Mm-hmm.
about 5 years,
Mm,
6 years.
mm-hmm.
Take care of them.
Mm-hmm. So that story for you is a positive story, right? That's something that lifts you up, right? Um, I don't know if that made it to the camera or not, but Charles says he could tell the story that he's 6 feet tall. And I stood next to you a little earlier today, and I was like, you know what? I'm 5'4", and Charles isn't much taller than this. So I know that there's a little bit of a tall tale in that one, Charles. Thank you. I'm here all week. Yeah. So no, the question I want to ask though is when we tell, well, first of all, I'll say I have, there's a little thing in my family, and I bet in most families here is like, I remember when my mom and my grandma would talk about my great grandma Hissam, and how she would repeat stories all the time. And then time went through a decade or two later, and then mom and I would joke about how her grandma, would tell the same story over and over again. And you'd be like, "Yep, Graham, heard that story. Yeah, thanks." And now, sorry, mom, I know she'll watch this later this week, but we joke, and with my mom, like, yeah, mom, yes, you mentioned you had dinner with Shannon, my sister, earlier this week, or you had lunch with your neighbor. Does anyone have that experience where you know someone in your life who keeps telling you the same story over and over again? And so I'm not talking about those little things, that are I'm really talking about, I think you know what the point of my story is. It's the things that are going to have a negative impact on you. It's not the minor stuff that we can say, okay, because those things, they're fine and they're harmless, right? One of the questions is, why do you tell the story that you do? Is it for entertainment? Do you want to entertain the person who's listening? Is that what you're doing? Or are you doing it to impress someone with how you got through this hard time in your life? Are you doing it because you want some sort of pity or sympathy? Are you doing it because you want the listener to side with you on your side of the story? Are you doing it because you want someone to commiserate with you? You're like, oh, this person really torques me off, and I just need this other person to agree with me and why this person A is wrong, or to commiserate with you because you haven't healed from your own hurt yet. Why do you tell the story again to justify your anger about something? Why do we repeat these stories? And it's true that our ego sometimes craves that. We want to justify our anger, but we need to keep doing it over and over and over again. So I would love for us all to take a minute and really think about what is the story that you're telling yourself and the other people. And think about that throughout this week too. Catch yourself. I have, are you forever comfortable being the person who was bullied in school? Is that the story that I want to tell? Are you comfortable telling the story and being the person and being known as the person whose husband left you 15 years ago? Are you comfortable being the person who has had this illness and this injury and that injury? We all have had those people come into our lives who they only speak about that. And am I one of those people? So these are the kind of questions I think it really is helpful for us to ask ourselves. What is the story we are telling about ourselves over and over again? If you watched a movie and the lead character of that movie told the same negative story the whole way through, would you even get to the end of the movie? You'd be like, click, no, not going to do that. I have, and actually I was going to point out that Aristotle, his quote of his is, "We are what we repeatedly do." We are what we repeatedly do. So, are you a complainer? Are you a victim? Are you an aura of negativity? Or are you a spreader of joy? Are you a creator of your own reality? Are you happiness personified? Think about that. We are what we repeatedly do. A very close friend of mine gave me some advice several years ago, and she said, I'll give her credit. This is my very close friend, Reverend Rose Witham, from Unity of Merritt Island. And she gave me some very good advice years ago. And she says, when something bad or irritating, annoying, unfortunate happens to you, you get to tell that story 3 times. 3 times. It can be to one person or 3 different people, but after that, you are just continuing to create it. You're sustaining the thing that happened. And I think you all understand, and we could pick it apart. I'm not talking about a major event that you need to inform people about a historical thing. No, please, this isn't, not this slide yet, actually. Thank you. So one of the, tell your story just 3 times, right? And then it has to be done, because if you keep on telling that story, you're going to perpetuate the story. So this week, I finally said, well, this is part of my talk. And I wrote a song about it. All right, so here is Tell Your Story 3 Times, all right? When I've had a bad day and can't wait for it to end, I usually grab my cell phone to complain about it to a friend. It's good to try and clear my mind, good to get it off my chest. But once I've told that story 3 times, I can put that tale to rest. Tell your story 3 times and not one more. Put it out of your mind and then close the door. Don't perpetuate the energy of something bad from before. Tell that story 3 times and not one more. We've all had a time or 2, or maybe 8 or 9 or 10, when something doesn't go our way and we play it back again and again. We may not even know or see how we're stuck there in the past. So if you tell that story again, make sure that it's the last. Tell your story 3 times and not one more. Put it out of your mind and then slam that door. Don't perpetuate the energy of something bad from before. Tell that story 3 times and not one more. Instead of letting the past define us, here's a tool that will remind us. Tell your story 3 times and not one more. Put it out of your mind and then slam the door. Don't perpetuate the energy of something bad from before. Tell that story 3 times and not one more. Tell that story 3 times and not one more. Tell that story 3 times and not one more. Yes, 3 times, 3 times. Thank you, folks. And thank you, Reverend Rose Witham, for that hint a few years ago. Again, one that I'm still trying to put into practice, right? Yes. Oh, right. Where did there we go. Just wrapping this little, this part of our service up, though. Does your movie, apart from the exercise of this wisdom, right? This cute little thing that we can take home with us, tell your story 3 times. We also, if we don't do it, we can really get stuck in a rut, right? That's the really important thing. We don't want to get stuck in a rut, playing out that role, that character in a movie, right? So what is your movie? You are the main character in it. How do you want to write your story? Yeah, that's really, really important. What do you want to see? You get to tell that story. You are the actor, you are the movie writer, you're the script writer, you are all of this, you're the character itself. So just remember what you want your story to be and try not to make it a tragedy, right? Just join with me for one moment in meditation and prayer, in just alignment. Sweet Spirit, I want to align myself with the awareness of the present moment. I want to stay in the here and the now. I want my story to be one of joy and happiness. Please help me to remember when I step outside of the alignment, when I step into the past. Bring me closer and closer to the present moment. So it is. So it is. So it is. And I'm going to ask all of you to join me now in this song. Now we can pull up that next slide. Yes. We've got to learn this one. Yes. Tell that story 3 times and not one more. Put it out of your mind and then close the door. Don't perpetuate the energy of something bad from before. Tell that story 3 times and not one more. Yes, you can take a picture of it if you want. I see Glenn doing that. Let's try with me again. And tell your story 3 times and not one more. Put it out of your mind and then close the door. Don't perpetuate the energy of something bad from before. Tell that story 3 times and not one more. One last line. Tell your story 3 times. Finish it off. And not one more. There we go. Yeah, take that one home with you. Leave it up there for a second. I see some cameras coming up. Yes, tell your story 3 times and not one more. Woo!
That's got to be a recording.
Oh, well, maybe we'll get around to that. Yes, yeah.
Thank you for that wisdom.
Mm.
Isn't that a great reminder for us? A way to stay positive and not relive the past. By the way, Reverend Coates used to say that a rut is a gravesite open at both ends. So we don't want to get in a rut.
Yes.